にも恵まれぬ貴様のような盆栽に。
なんて
小さい。
As the scene unfolds, we see a man, eyes filled with sadness, in a crowd making fun of him. In this sad moment, a prince, before ending his life, gives the commoner a parting gift, a chance to use his hidden magic. With desperation, the man tries to gather his powers, trying to attack the prince. His shaking arms release a weak flame, barely burning the prince, making people laugh at him. Disappointed by the commoner's lack of skill, the prince thinks about the wise advice of William Bordeaux, emphasizing the importance of family, talent, and intelligence in using magic. He feels sad that hard work doesn't matter without natural talent, scolding the commoner for dreaming of being great in magic. With a wave, the prince sends a blast of flames at the helpless commoner, burning him in pain. But, in the fire, the commoner finds comfort in the beauty of magic, wanting to understand it more even in his last moments. As he turns to ash, he wishes for another chance to enjoy magic. Suddenly, he wakes up to a strange scene, surrounded by tall servants holding toys. Confused and dizzy, he sees them as big enemies, instinctively casting a weak fire spell to defend himself. His accidental spell sets off fireworks, showing that a royal heir, the 7th prince of the Saloon Kingdom, is born. As the villagers celebrate, the castle servants rush to control the chaos caused by the newborn prince's accidental magic. Without knowing, the playful prince enjoys his accidental magic, not realizing the trouble he caused. Years go by, and life in the kingdom goes back to normal. In the castle's corridors, hardworking servants search for the elusive prince. Hidden in the shadows, the young prince, now called Lloyd, takes a break. But his peace is interrupted by 2 unexpected visitors. Trying to stay quiet, Lloyd tries to hide, but the men recognize him. Trying to avoid them, Lloyd runs deeper into the castle, leaving the puzzled men to wonder about the mysterious 7th prince, who is meant for something beyond being a king. Perplexed by the strong efforts of a particular man to impress him, the prince remembers his extraordinary early years, speaking soon after being born, preferring books over toys, and refusing baby food with sophistication. His friend jokes that he must be the reincarnation of the wise sage, William Bordeaux. Despite the jest, as the prince walks down the castle steps, he realizes he carries memories of a past life as a commoner, which he finds hard to accept alongside his royal status. While servants search for him, the prince struggles with being reborn, wondering why fate made him royal. Determined to explore the magic he loved in his past life, he goes to the royal library, excited about its magical knowledge. Among the large books, he starts reading but is interrupted by Silpha, a skilled swordswoman assigned to teach him. They spar, and although he doesn't care about being king, Silpha teaches him that mastering the sword is important for discipline and valor. Even though he doesn't want to be king, Lloyd trains with Silpha, hiding his efforts to finish quickly. He uses secret magic to enhance his strength during training, but realizes Silpha is better in skill and strength. Still, Lloyd uses his creativity and magic to try to win, defying his status with every use of his magical powers. Undeterred by Silpha's sharp eyes, Lloyd keeps using his secret moves, using magic to copy her moves during their sword practice. But when he tries a surprise attack, Silpha's smart defense breaks his illusion of winning, leaving him defenseless. Surprised by Silpha accusing him of cheating, Lloyd's act falls apart, showing his cleverness. Silpha admires his talent for thinking fast and using spells together, something most magicians can't do. Silpha tells him to take his time to improve instead of rushing, not knowing Lloyd has more hidden spells. Reluctantly following Silpha to the bath, Lloyd feels sad about leaving his books, but he gets interested in the forbidden underground library's scary stories. Curious, Lloyd decides to explore it, excited by the thought of secret knowledge hidden below the castle. At night, Lloyd sneaks into the underground library using his magic to avoid guards. The guards don't know he's there as he easily breaks the old seal. Inside the library, Lloyd smells old books and feels the magic secrets hidden there. He gets lost in the forbidden knowledge, not noticing the danger. As he goes deeper, Lloyd finds something unbelievable, a magical book that can talk and has dark powers. Impressed by Lloyd's bravery, the demon in the book tells him about the seal's secret and the power it holds. As the demon named Grimoire introduces himself, Lloyd understands the importance of the magical book's guardian. Even though Grimoire tries to tempt him with riches and old knowledge, Lloyd stays determined to protect the kingdom's magic. Lloyd isn't interested in Grimoire's promises of wealth and remains focused on guarding the kingdom's magic. He doesn't trust Grimoire's nice words and stays cautious, knowing he has a duty to fulfill. Curious about learning ancient magic, Lloyd cautiously agrees to Grimoire's offer, wanting knowledge more than he fears the risks. When he releases the demon's seal, Lloyd prepares himself for what he'll learn. But Grimoire quickly shows his true colors, attacking Lloyd with old spells. Lloyd defends himself easily, making a barrier to block Grimoire's attacks. Lloyd studies Grimoire's spells with interest while Grimoire gets frustrated seeing Lloyd's strong defense. As the battle continues, Lloyd gets better at magic and surprises Grimoire with his skills. Grimoire starts to realize he underestimated Lloyd. In the end, Lloyd uses a powerful spell to defeat Grimoire, who couldn't escape. With Grimoire gone, Lloyd feels confident and ready to continue his journey in magic, knowing he's learned a lot from the battle. As Lloyd fixed the library, Grimoire watched in surprise as the room became perfect again. Impressed by Lloyd's skill, Grimoire started to respect him more, seeing how talented he was. But Lloyd wasn't sure if Grimoire was trustworthy. He knew normal magic couldn't beat demons, so he decided to test Grimoire. When Lloyd got closer, Grimoire got scared and couldn't face Lloyd's power. Knowing he couldn't fight back, Grimoire gave up and offered to help Lloyd. Lloyd was hesitant at first, but he agreed to let Grimoire serve him. Grimoire then turned into a smaller, less scary form. Even though Grimoire tried to trick Lloyd, he had to obey because Lloyd had strong magic. As Grimoire did what Lloyd asked, Lloyd used the chance to learn more about magic from the library's books. With Grimoire's help, Lloyd used Grimoire's presence to learn more about magic while also keeping an eye on him. Albert gets ready for the day and goes to the library. Servants bow to him as he walks by. Lloyd is deep in some books with Grimoire next to him when Albert comes to the door. Grimoire tells Lloyd that Albert is here as the door opens, and Lloyd tells him to hide. Albert comes in, and Lloyd is so happy to see him that he lifts his head too fast, and the book on his head falls into Albert's hands. Lloyd happily watches as Albert gets ready to practice at the testing range, using his fire magic to hit a target, which surprises everyone watching. Lloyd claps for Albert's effort, while Grimoire can't believe he's seeing the second prince of the kingdom in action. Lloyd tells him that Albert is so clever and strong that people think he might be the next king, so he can use different places in the castle. Lloyd is always happy when Albert lets him come along because that's the only time he can use his magic. When it's Lloyd's turn at the practice range, Albert tells him it's his turn to try. But Lloyd knows he shouldn't look too good to avoid getting noticed as a possible king. He just wants to study magic without getting attention. So, he decides to make his fireballs just touch the targets instead of hitting them directly, even though Grimoire warns him it's harder. Despite the difficulty, Lloyd keeps to his plan and touches the targets with his fireballs. Everyone claps for him, but one person jokes about him only touching the targets. Grimoire is annoyed by the teasing, knowing how hard it is, while Lloyd thinks about the good and bad points of his technique. Grimoire sees that Lloyd really loves learning about magic. Albert takes a break, and his servants go with him, leaving Lloyd alone at the practice range, which makes Lloyd very happy. Excited to try many ideas he's been thinking about, Lloyd tells Grimoire he wants to try double magic. Grimoire tries to stop him, saying only demons can do double magic because they have two mouths. But Lloyd absorbs Grimoire into his hand, surprised that it works, even though Grimoire feels uncomfortable being inside Lloyd's body. Lloyd tries to work with Grimoire so they can do a complicated fire spell together. He asks if Grimoire can do it, and Grimoire says yes confidently, saying advanced spells are easy for him as a demon. As they start the spell together, Grimoire gets sick before they can finish. Lloyd is confused, so Grimoire asks what he's doing. Lloyd says he was trying spell stacking, which is when you combine spells to cast them faster. He was trying to cast 100 spells at once, but Grimoire tells him that's not how it works. You can only stack 3 spells at once. Lloyd realizes it would take forever to cast the spell he wants. Lloyd decides to use both Grimoire's mouth and his own mouth at the same time to speak, to see if he can control both. Grimoire asks if he's going to try 2 advanced spells at once, but Lloyd tells him to be quiet, saying he needs both mouths. As Lloyd starts the spell, Grimoire wonders how Lloyd can do 2 different advanced spells at the same time. He sees that Lloyd is combining 2 types of magic, impressed by Lloyd's magic power. Grimoire watches as Lloyd does the double spell, but he realizes the spell will be too strong to aim at anything, not just a target. Still, Lloyd finishes the spell, and a strong beam shoots up. The beam gets everyone's attention in the kingdom. Albert's helpers ask why he's so interested in Lloyd, but Albert sees Lloyd's talent. He says Lloyd purposely made his fireballs only touch the targets, showing his magic skill. Albert thinks Lloyd could become a great wizard one day, which would be good for the future. The helpers aren't surprised that Albert wants a great wizard working for him, thinking about his future as king. but Albert says he just wants to get along with his little brother. Albert's helper tells him his brother should be done with the targets in the practice room by now. But when Albert looks out the window, he sees it's already dark outside, wondering why it's nighttime in the middle of the day. Meanwhile, Grimoire shakes in their case as they see what Lloyd's spell did. They're surprised that Lloyd's spell made a hole in the sky, turning it from day to night. Lloyd likes what he did for a moment, but then he realizes what happened. Quickly, he stops the spell, making the sky normal again. Grimoire wonders what Lloyd is made of, while Lloyd is glad he could undo his spell. The next day, Grimoire reads the newspaper and sees a story about Lloyd's spell. He tells Lloyd about it, but then sees another story that catches his attention. Lloyd tells Grimoire about stories of brave adventurer groups exploring tough dungeons and finding treasures. He's fascinated by the treasures they find and decides he wants to go into a dungeon too. Even though Grimoire tries to stop him, Lloyd keeps walking like he's hypnotized. Grimoire warns him that everyone in the castle will worry if he disappears, but Lloyd says he can solve any problem with a little magic. He shows Grimoire an acorn and uses a plant spell to make a copy of himself. Grimoire is impressed, but Lloyd wants to make the copy even better. Thinking Lloyd can sneak out of the castle with the copy, Grimoire worries about fooling Sylpha. Lloyd remembers how observant she is, like the time she noticed he grew a tiny bit. Grimoire is surprised too, and Lloyd knows he can't fool her with a copy that moves stiffly. So, he decides to let Grimoire control the copy while he leaves. Lloyd escapes and calls Grimoire to see how things are going. Grimoire says he's trying his best to act like Lloyd. Meanwhile, the maids watch Lloyd closely, surprised by how much he cares about his appearance all of a sudden. Grimoire thinks Lloyd's idea to put his mind in the copy is clever. Lloyd tells Grimoire to watch out for Sylpha while acting like him. Checking the copy, Grimoire is amazed to find it has magic power. He realizes he can do whatever he wants now that Lloyd isn't around. Lloyd grins crazily, thinking about all the things he can do. Suddenly, he hears Lloyd calling to him, saying he's counting on him. Grimoire is so touched that he can't speak. Lloyd calls to him again, and Grimoire promises to do his best until Lloyd comes back. Lloyd keeps flying, but then he realizes he doesn't know where to find a dungeon. Floating in place, he tries to figure out what to do next when he sees some movement below. A woman is being chased by orcs, and Grimoire tells him she's in danger. The woman stops and defeats the orcs easily. Lloyd sees she's a martial artist from her fighting style and her breathing technique. Standing over the defeated orcs, the woman tells them to come back in 100 years. Lloyd remembers a book he read about people who use inner energy, called Kai, to do amazing things. The woman notices Lloyd hiding and calls to him. Surprised she saw him, Lloyd decides to meet her and ask about her techniques in dungeons. Grimoire warns him the woman might recognize him as the prince if he reveals himself. But since Lloyd doesn't say anything, the woman thinks he's an enemy and attacks. Thinking fast, Lloyd changes how he looks quickly. When the woman comes closer, he says he's Robert, a new adventurer, and makes himself look like a mix of himself and his brother. The woman, Tao, is a B-rank adventurer and martial artist. Lloyd wonders if she sees through his disguise, but Grimoire says it's perfect. Tao starts to like Robert because no man has paid her attention since she left her dojo. Tao was excited to find someone interesting and decided she wanted Lloyd as her boyfriend, even if it seemed impossible. Lloyd said he wanted to explore a dungeon together, but if she didn't want to, he'd find someone else. She agreed right away, and they went to the dungeon entrance. Inside, Tao fought some monsters to impress Lloyd, but he was more interested in the glowing rocks on the cave floor. Feeling a bit sad that Lloyd cared more about rocks than her, they went deeper into the cave. Lloyd asked why Tao was adventuring alone, and she said she hadn't found good teammates yet. While taking a break, Lloyd asked Tao about her Kai technique. Tao was surprised he knew about it since it wasn't well known where he's from. Lloyd said Kai was like mana for sorcerers and mentioned her breathing technique. Tao said breathing was important for mastering Kai and gave humans strong power. She warned Lloyd to be careful practicing, or he could get hurt. Lloyd felt a different energy from his mana and realized he could use it to make his magic stronger. Tao agreed to teach him more about Kai, and Lloyd thanked her for the lesson. Even though Tao's heart raced, she stayed calm and reminded Lloyd to keep practicing his breathing to hide her feelings. Grimoire couldn't believe Lloyd was so focused on learning magic. As Lloyd got ready to eat dessert, Sylpha suddenly showed up behind him, surprising him. Tao used a Kai blast to defeat a wolf, which she thought was the dungeon's boss. Tao says they can open the dungeon chest now, but she warns Lloyd that the treasure might not be great because it's not a high-level dungeon. Lloyd is interested in how the dungeon works, and Tao notices. They approach the chest, and Tao sees that Lloyd is almost perfect at the breathing technique. She's happy to find someone talented and thinks even her strict grandpa would like Lloyd. Tao gets lost in thought for a moment, but Lloyd stays focused on opening the chest. Tao opens the chest, but a blade of energy nearly cuts her in half. Lloyd acts fast and saves her before the blade hits the floor where she was standing. A lick comes up from under the chest, scaring Tao. But Lloyd is excited to fight a new boss, his eyes shining. The powerful lick appeared before Tao and Lloyd in the dark cave. Lloyd, unfamiliar with such a monstrous creature, turned to Tao for guidance. She reassured him with a confident smile, suggesting he head back to the dungeon entrance. But Lloyd insisted on staying to see Tao defeat the lick. Suddenly, Tao used a strong move that blasted Lloyd out of the cave. She hoped he wouldn't get hurt on the way back. Meanwhile, the lick wasted no time and attacked Tao aggressively. She skillfully dodged its relentless strikes, wondering why such a strong monster was in a low-level dungeon. Realizing how tough the lick was, Tao knew even an experienced adventurer would struggle against it. Determined to buy time for Lloyd to return safely, she focused on avoiding the lick's attacks. Meanwhile, propelled by Tao's blast, Lloyd flew through the dungeon. Despite creating a barrier to slow down, he eventually landed, annoyed by two goblins scurrying around. As Lloyd debated returning to Tao, he asked Grimoire for advice, but got no answer at first. Just when he thought he was too far, Grimoire weakly urged him to come back quickly. Touched by Grimoire's plea, Lloyd thought about the situation. Tao was still facing the lick alone. Back in the cave, Tao frowned, realizing defeating the lick was getting harder. Feeling defeat approaching, she carefully backed away, hoping to escape unnoticed by the lick. But the lick floated above her, mocking Tao. It revealed it consumed adventurers to gain their skills and knowledge. Dismissing Tao as not worth consuming, the lick praised Lloyd's agility in dodging attacks. Thinking about Lloyd's ideas on Kai techniques, Tao used her training and focused. With determination, she launched a strong Kai attack at the lick, only for it to be blocked by the lick's strong barrier. Undeterred, Tao focused all her energy into breaking the barrier. Years of hard work fueled her as she punched through with a powerful energy beam. Sure of her victory, Tao collapsed exhausted and unable to move. To her dismay, the lick mocked her efforts. It revealed a spell stronger than any energy Tao could use, declaring her life meaningless despite years mastering Kai techniques. The lick started chanting a powerful spell, sure of its superiority. To its surprise, the spell broke mid-chant. Looking up, the lick saw Lloyd standing next to Tao, shielding her with a strong barrier. Disappointed that Tao had almost given up, Lloyd told her he would handle the lick, though he wanted to have some fun too. As the lick began chanting again, Lloyd seemed to float through the air like smoke, appearing behind the lick instantly. Using a special breathing technique called Kai, Lloyd surprised the lick, who hadn't noticed him chanting. While thinking about how to combine Kai and magic effectively, Lloyd focused on keeping his strong barrier against the lick's continuous attacks. Remembering Tao's advice on Kai techniques, Lloyd concentrated on his breathing, taking deep breaths to increase his mana flow. Moving quickly through the cave to maximize airflow, Lloyd's actions confused the lick, which thought he was trying to escape. Unaffected by the lick's attacks, Lloyd continued practicing his breathing technique. Tao watched in amazement as Lloyd persisted with his breathing exercises. Realizing his barrier was making it hard to breathe deeply, Lloyd cancelled it. Seizing the chance, the lick launched many spells, thinking Lloyd was at his limit. Holding onto a stalactite, Lloyd kept up his breathing, dodging the lick's attacks gracefully. Tao saw that Lloyd had cancelled his barrier on purpose to improve his Kai. Lloyd synchronized his Kai with mana, dodging the lick's attacks while perfecting his technique. With a successful Mana Kai mix achieved, Lloyd aimed precise strikes at the lick, adjusting their size and range. The lick used protective magic, but Lloyd's strikes broke through each barrier, determined to beat his opponent. As Lloyd released consecutive strikes effortlessly, the lick admired his mastery of Kai, even more than its own magic. Despite the lick's efforts to defend itself with barriers, Lloyd's attacks were too strong. In a last attempt, the lick made a strong barrier, but Lloyd's precise strikes cut through it, defeating the lick. A treasure chest appeared after the lick's defeat, holding only a worn dagger. Disappointed, Tao thought it was a disappointment, but Lloyd decided to keep the dagger, sensing leftover mana in it. The treasure chest suddenly closed and started sinking into the ground. Lloyd quickly realized it was the dungeon's heart trying to escape. Moving fast, he grabbed onto it, understanding its plan: to burrow underground, devour magical items, and create a new dungeon. It would absorb gear left by adventurers, growing until the dungeon was cleared. Then it would give up its gathered treasures and possibly break free. They narrowly escaped before the dungeon sealed completely. Outside, Tao asked why Lloyd, a sorcerer, used Kai techniques against the lick. She thought maybe he sought revenge for her, but Lloyd said he was just having fun. Remembering Grimoire was in trouble, Lloyd told Tao he needed to handle something urgent. Tao decided to train harder to impress Lloyd in return. Flying home, Lloyd entered his castle through his bedroom window, worried about Grimoire. He found Grimoire covered in bumps and bruises, saying Sylpha had pushed him hard during training. Disappointed in Lloyd's perceived weakness, apologizing, Lloyd and Grimoire explored the castle library the next day. Grimoire still wasn't impressed with the dagger that delayed Lloyd, but Lloyd insisted it was valuable. He soaked the dagger in hot water and rubbed it, revealing mana essence, a catalyst for enchanting weapons. Studying the mana essence, Lloyd found it enhanced strength reinforcement. Grimoire saw potential for experiments with enchantments. However, Lloyd warned about challenges. Mana essence was costly and enchantments often failed. Reluctant to waste the weapon and essence, Lloyd chose to study and create mana essence himself. Using a spell for water purification, Lloyd separated the mana essence into its parts: oil, silver, and hematite. Grimoire noted hematite was powdered monster core, very rare. Lloyd said he had the dungeon's treasure chest core, which could provide hematite. Excited, Lloyd and Grimoire realized they needed oil, silver, and many weapons for mana essence enchantments. Lloyd asked his father for help, who gave him a bag of silver coins, joking if gold would suit him better. Lloyd thanked his father, happy with the silver coins, then hurried back to the library. In the hidden library, Grimoire helped Lloyd melt the silver coins into liquid. Later that day, Lloyd sparred with Sylpha, fully focused on intense training. Trying to surprise her with a fast spell, he aimed for a sneak attack from behind, but Sylpha skillfully dodged it. Undeterred, Lloyd cast a changing spell on the ground, catching Sylpha off guard as he moved to strike. Before he could win, Sylpha vanished. Confused, Lloyd looked around, only for Sylpha to attack unexpectedly from beneath him. Caught off guard, Lloyd admitted defeat. After the match, Sylpha surprised Lloyd with a bottle of oil. Confused, Lloyd asked why she gave him the gift when he hadn't won the spar. Sylpha reassured him, explaining she didn't mind because she was glad to see he wasn't weak. She realized he had simply been having a tough day, easing her earlier worries. Grimoire admired Sylpha's skill, seeing her as a strong opponent even against Lloyd's combined magic and sword skills. Believing in Lloyd's potential, Sylpha thought he would become very powerful as he grew. Lloyd accepted the oil, promising to show her his progress. Back in his secret lab in the library, Lloyd and Grimoire mixed the oil with silver and hematite to make mana essence. The next day, Lloyd asked Prince Albert for help getting many weapons for sorcery practice. Impressed by Lloyd's love for sorcery, Prince Albert agreed to help, using royal guards to collect a variety of weapons. The guards were unsure, doubting a young boy could enchant their weapons. Lloyd used his copy assistant to help enchant the weapons, getting mixed reactions from the guards. Determined to meet Grimoire's expectations, Lloyd carefully put spells on the swords, but he went too far with some, making them break. Undeterred, Grimoire encouraged him to keep going, saying they were just starting. After much work, Lloyd showed Prince Albert the results. Surprised and impressed, Prince Albert learned Lloyd had enchanted 50 out of 120 weapons. Lloyd said he had accidentally broken 70 swords by over-enchanting them, but he proudly showed the 80 swords he had enchanted. Prince Albert was amazed by Lloyd's success, noting that even expert enchanters usually succeed with only 10% of their tries. The guards, who had doubted at first, were amazed by Lloyd's skills. Sylpha, annoyed by their doubts, showed how sharp one enchanted sword was, proving them wrong. Happy with Lloyd's success, Prince Albert invited him on a monster hunt, approved by the king himself. Lloyd eagerly agreed, ready to test his enchanted weapons in real battle.